Hey, good afternoon.
Hello,
Uh, would you please tell us your name
David Bunger,
and what branch were you in
United States Air Force,
and what years were you in
1982 till 1989.
and where were you stationed in your time?
Basic training was at Lackland in Texas, and my tech school was at Lowry out in Colorado. We spent 3 years at Upper Hayford, England, and 3 years at Tyndall Air Force Base in Florida.
What was your favorite duty station?
I like Florida. Tyndall was a beautiful site.
And so, you were overseas just in the UK.
Yes, just the United Kingdom. That was a long time. 3 years away from the United States is a long time.
Did they let you bring your family with you?
Yes, I had to have a house before I could get orders cut for my wife. And then we had 3 children while we were over there before we came back home. Did make one trip home in between. After a year, they sent me back for school, and I brought my wife and our oldest son back on that trip.
That's awesome. A favorite memory of your time in service?
I got to go for a ride in a T-33 jet. That was awesome.
I've heard of a T-38. What is a T-33?
T-33 was a trainer. It was one of the first jets that they had. It was modeled after the F-86, but they just retired those in 1987.
Is that what the Air Force calls a something flight, like a reward flight?
That was an incentive flight. Yes,
And sorry, what was the flight called?
an incentive flight. It's for doing a good job. I got selected as maintenance tech of the month in August of 1986.
That's awesome. And what exactly does the maintenance tech do?
Uh, that was just part of our job. We were part of the component repair squadron, and they had people enter airmen for those awards, and it's whichever one I do was selected. We usually went in front of the board.
That's really awesome. And so, what did you? Excuse me. What was your daily tasks like in the Air Force?
Most of the time, I sat at a test bench in a humidity and temperature controlled laboratory and dust free laboratory. A lot of the day, you'd sit and look in oscilloscopes and spectrum analyzers, and every once in a while, you got to go back and do pressure gauges, and we even did some radioactive test equipment.
Were you in any danger when during your time in the service?
Um, Not direct. I don't know if you remember in April '86, we bombed Gaddafi, and the radar jammers and the backup bombers came off our base in England, which we were in an exercise on Monday. And Tuesday, when we came into work, they said, "You're no longer in an exercise." So that was our last 30 days that we were over there. So I was pretty nervous those 30 days.
And so you got to have your family with you. What was that like for your wife and kids?
Well, my wife enjoyed England. She really, really enjoyed England. The kids were all too young to remember any of that. Our oldest one might remember Florida, but I don't know that the kids remember a whole lot of it.
And you said your kids were born while you were in England. What was the was it a military hospital or civilian?
The first one was born at John Radcliffe Hospital in Oxford. That was a civilian hospital. They thought he was early. He wasn't, but, and then the other 2 that we had over there were born on base. And then we had one more down in Florida while we were in Florida.
And then what was your rank in the Air Force?
I came in as Airman Basic, and I was Staff Sergeant by the time I got out.
Is that E2 and E6?
E1 through E5.
E5. Oh, impressive. Do Air Force members usually get to E5 in their first 4 years?
It's normally about 6 years. I was about on target to make my Staff Sergeant rank.
How long were you in the Air Force?
I was in the Air Force for 7 years.
And you said that you said your job was what?
My job was precision measuring equipment laboratories and test measurement diagnostics equipment laboratories. We had both names, and it was to calibrate all the test equipment that was used on anything of any accuracy, from personnel weighing scales all the way up to identification friend or foe and tactical air navigation.
Did your unit support any combat operations?
We supported the El Dorado Canyon mission that was held in 1986, and that's the one that we bombed Gaddafi down in Libya.
Since you were stationed overseas, did you work with excuse me. Since you were stationed in England, did you get to work with the British Air Force?
We got to work with a little bit of the British Air Force. I got to do a C-130 test stand down at RAF Lynham, and that's actually a British base. We did support the whole southern half of the United Kingdom with our jet engine test stand program. We also went to London to the embassy, and we went to TCS O'Kanger, and I went to RAF St. Maughan's. So we intermingled with some of them, but we never really got to know them real well.
Tyler, how are you doing, buddy? Okay.
I did get to take them on vacation a couple times. We didn't go. They didn't get to go on any TDYs with me.
Where were you stationed after you left England?
After we left England, we went down to Tyndall Air Force Base at Panama City, Florida. It's a beautiful area down there. Basically a resort after being overseas.
Where, what base did you leave the service at?
That was I left the Air Force at Tyndall Air Force Base.
Are you originally from Nebraska?
I'm originally from Nebraska, and from here we did do a lot of traveling with the service.
Did you enlist from Nebraska?
I enlisted out when we were living out in Sutherland, and had to do all my entrance stuff all in Omaha.
When you left the Air Force, you had 3 kids and a wife. And did you come back to Nebraska?
Yeah, when I got out of the Air Force, we had 4 children and my wife, and yes, we came back to Nebraska. We lived in Lincoln, and I worked for Duncan Aviation for a year, and then I got on with the power company.
What was it like trying to move 4 kids and a wife across the country after you left the Air Force?
When I got out of the Air Force, we rented a 27-foot rider truck, and we had it about half full and overweight. And I drove it with a vehicle behind me, and my wife had our van and a boat behind her, and her folks were with us. So, we've got some stories about that too.
What was the most challenging thing about being in the United States Air Force?
The most challenging thing that I can remember is being away from your family when you're overseas, because you can't just jump in a car and go visit your relatives. You got to jump in a plane, and it's pretty expensive, and it's time consuming. You have to use a lot of your leave to go home.
Where did you do basic training?
I did my basic training down in Lackland Air Force Base down in Texas in July and August. It was nice and warm.
After Where did you go after Lackland Air Force Base?
After Lackland Air Force Base, I went to Lowry Air Force Base, which is basically in Aurora, Colorado, which is no longer there. But we spent a good 9 months there in tech school.
Were there other MOSs? Were there other Air Force jobs trained at your base that you went to school at?
They had several courses to train people at Lowry. I don't remember for sure what all they were, but there were several. They taught a lot of the electronics classes there. That's basically what I was in, was electronics.
When you were in your military job training, what level of electronics training did you get?
When I got to Lowry, um, we started out as basic electronics, there, your Ohm's law, and then we worked our way all the way up to troubleshooting test equipment. So we get oscilloscopes and stuff that had legs cut off of transistors and stuff, and you had to find those components. So we actually went clear down to component level. So it was an intensive course.
What made you join the Air Force?
Well, I joined the Air Force because I was working at a job that I was trying to get out of. I couldn't get out of it. And I finally decided I had worked with a lot of people who had been in the military, and I thought it sounded like a good opportunity. It also gave me an opportunity to get some more training.
Did you enlist right out of high school?
I enlisted after I'd been in the workforce for about 4 years.
When you got into the military, did you notice a difference between yourself, who had worked for 4 years, compared to the kids coming out of high school?
When I got in the Air Force, you could look around and you could see all these kids that had just come out of high school. And I was a little more experienced and a little older. In fact, I was the oldest in my flight. And you could definitely tell the maturity of the older ones, that's for sure. The young ones didn't know a whole lot. They were all nervous. And when I went to basic training, it was like a daycare for me, but the other guys were all a little nervous about it.
What was the most challenging thing about basic training?
The most challenging thing about basic training to me was probably being away from my wife, because we'd been married 3 years at that point.
Mr. Bunger, I want to say thank you for your service. Is there anything that you would tell Americans if you had a chance to be able to speak to everybody at once?
It was a great opportunity to serve my country, our country, and I think everybody really ought to do it at some time or another. We appreciate all the support that all the Americans have given us since we've gotten out of the service. We didn't really feel that way while we were in, but we definitely feel it now. I'd like to tell every American out there, thank you for supporting us while we were in and after we've been out. And this is a great country we're in. And it's good to be patriotic. It's definitely good to be patriotic.
Why not the Marine Corps?
I feel there's two branches to the military. It's the Air Force and the Navy. We had hot cots, hot food, never slept on the ground, never slept in a tent.
What were the air what were the officers like in the Air Force?
Uh, the butter bars, the second lieutenants were pretty cocky, but once you got into the majors and the colonels, they were all right. They worked with you pretty good. I had a couple favorite commanders over the years, Lieutenant Colonel Travis and I believe it's Major Putnam that we had. They were good guys, but you did not want a grounded pilot as a commander because they were not happy being on the ground.
Did you get to work? Did you get to go out on the flight line and install the equipment you tested?
No, we did not get to go out on the flight line very often. When we were overseas, we pulled a duty, which was taking parts. I don't remember for sure what it was called, but we took parts around to all the different areas, uh, basically part runners. And I pulled one of those during an exercise once, which was not fun. Uh, that's if they're doing any simulated attacks, you have to put on your helmet, your gas mask, and crawl into a ditch. That was not fun. When we were in our shop, we didn't have to play any of those games because we were so far behind on our backlog.
How much equipment did you test through your shop in a average year?
It's really hard to say how much we actually tested because we had like 1,000 item backlog almost the whole 3 years I was overseas. We took care of everything in the southern half of the United Kingdom on every base, on every installation, and all the jet engine test stands. And then we also got random loads from Brodie Wales. They'd send us a pallet of stuff every month to work on as well, and a few other equipment that we can't talk about.
When you're testing this equipment, aren't you worried about like dust and like dirt getting in the equipment?
No, our environment that I worked in was completely dust free, humidity controlled, temperature controlled. We weren't allowed to bring any dirt and dust in. In fact, we had mats we had to walk on when we walked through the airlocks to get into the shop.
Um,
I guess I got a question.
Yeah.
How would you inspire future generations that want to join the Air Force?
I'd like to tell the younger generation, if you're looking for a job and you can't figure out what you want to do in life, join the service. There's so many jobs out there that you can get into. I never imagined myself sitting in a test bench, testing test equipment. I always wanted to have my hands on stuff out in the field. It was an enjoyable time, and it's something I'd never thought of. And I really think that it gives the younger generation the opportunity to find themselves.
how did your military service change you?
One of the things that I used to have trouble with was getting to work on time, and the military will change you on that. The other things, I just have more passion for what I do now than what I did before.
What did you do for work when you got out of the military?
When I got out of the Air Force, I went to work for Duncan Aviation for a year, working on emergency power supplies and autopilot servos for aircraft. Wasn't really happy there, but it was a good job.
Where did you go after Duncan Aviation?
After I left Duncan Aviation, I went to Sheldon Station, which is Nebraska Public Power District's original nuclear plant in the United States. I believe it's one of the first in the United States, and it had been converted to a coal-fired unit. And I got fortunate one day. I called down there, and somebody I used to work with in Sutherland before I went into the service was there, and he helped me get a job down there as a temporary. And from there, I got on full time.
You worked for Nebraska Public Power District?
Yes, I did. I worked for Nebraska Public Power District for 33 years.
Did you retire from them?
I retired from NPPD back in around 2022, I believe it was.
Is there anything you would change about your service if you could do it again?
If I had it to do again, I'd probably try to stay in for 20 years. I enjoyed what I was doing, but things just didn't work out. I had to come home.
Makes sense. Oh, man.
I didn't want to come home.
From England?
From Florida.
Oh. Did you want to leave Florida?
I would like to have stayed in Florida. The family circumstances pulled us away from Florida.
Where were you stationed in Florida?
Panama City. We were stationed in Panama City, Florida.
At what base was that?
That would be Tyndall Air Force Base down in Florida.
How about this? Do you think that the youth of today are answering the same call that you answered?
I feel some of the youth of today are answering the call like we did back then. I also feel there's a lot of them that are not. It's better now than it was. The recruitments are a lot higher than they were here a few years ago. I feel the youth of the current time don't understand what the service is all about and what you can get out of it. And you will get out of the service whatever you put into it. It's just like everything else in life.
Appreciate you and everything you did for our country.
Thank you.